Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where the very first thing I want to do is give Adam Freddy his proper shout out. Adam Freddy was the BTT viewer whose question got picked for yesterday's episode, but in my excitement to answer his question, I didn't copy and paste his name to my notes along with the question. So Adam, thank you again for your question, and hello to your twin brother, who you said you have successfully converted to a Beyond the Trailer viewer. So welcome to Adam Freddy's brother as well. All right, so let's get to today's stories. And again, Adam, I apologize for that. And I also thank the person who very kindly suggested in the comments yesterday that I look up on Twitter Adam Freddy's name so he could get his shout out. You guys are all so nice. Okay, so let's get on to today's stories. They're all casting stories and very interesting ones. A lot of diversity. This is the best time to try and become an actor. If you don't have like that traditional Hollywood look, that's good because it's going away. Now anyone has the potential to be a movie star. It's all based on the individual. Do you have charisma? Do you have that certain something? Well, that's all you need, and that comes in many different colors, sizes, genders, etc. And I think that's fabulous. All right, so the first story is about Peter Dinklage, who, I'm sure many times early on in his career was told he couldn't become a successful actor. Certainly not at a mainstream level, right? But that has not been the case, obviously. The Station Agent was his breakthrough movie, and then Game of Thrones, of course, lucky for Peter Dinklage, they needed, an actor of his height, and he kind of ran away with the show. So, that his talent just totally stole the day. There are a lot of big names. People love all the characters on Game of Thrones, but Peter Dinklage has definitely been someone who has been like one of the top tier characters. Now he's in talks to be, again, just with the Woody Harrelson story yesterday for Star Wars, when they say the actor's in talks, when they make the announcement that they've gotten the role officially, it's not a biggest deal. Maybe it will be if they reveal who Peter Dinklage might play in Avengers Infinity War, because right now he's just in talks for an unspecified role. Now, I think that, the sad, obvious choice would be Uatu, the Watcher, right? But he doesn't speak that much, and Peter Dinklage's voice is one of his best assets. So Uatu, I think, would be the cop-out, right? I would kind of love to see him play Adam Warlock, the guy who's in the cocoon in the collector's collection. That cocoon is always that size for Adam Warlock in the comics, but it looks Peter Dinklage size to me. And Adam Warlock, to make sure he doesn't come off as like Star-Lord, basically, Chris Pratt's character, it would be great to cast Peter Dinklage. We all know that Peter Dinklage totally looks awesome as a blonde. So that would be my hope. And also, therefore, he'd be kind of a hero. He'd have some powers. He would, not just kind of have to stand in the background and narrate, basically. So I would love for him to be Adam Warlock. I think that would be very exciting. I just hope it turns out well, because, he was, of course, Trask in X-Men Days of Future Past, and he was totally wasted in that role. The role wasn't particularly well developed. He didn't really do anything with what he had. The whole thing was just kind of a disaster. It was a lot of mustache acting, to be perfectly honest. Mustache and glasses. His costume wore him instead of the other way around. But hopefully with Avengers Infinity War, he'll have a good situation. Now, he would be in both... I'd be curious if he can disappear into the movie. Peter Dinklage has a very distinct persona. But he would be in both movies, apparently, which they're saying aren't two chapters of the same story, but are two separate films, but they are shooting them back to back, maybe for budgetary reasons, because they have such big casts, but there have to be ramifications from whatever happens in the first event, whatever happens in Infinity War, right? We're all hoping that someone's going to die already. Okay, so anyway, they'll just draw straws, on the set. They're like, someone's got to leave this party. And everyone's like, no, it's the only thing holding up my career. Okay, I think that's the case for many of the people there. So anyway, between the two Avengers movies, there's just Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel. So I'd be interested to see how those stories could happen in between those two really momentous chapters, right? Although that's a very female-centric year for Marvel. That's really interesting that they have Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel the same year. I'd be curious to see if a double dose of female-centric movies, what that does to the Marvel box office numbers. Can Marvel survive anything? I think 2017 hopefully will be laying the groundwork for them with Ghost in the Shell and Wonder Woman. All right, so anyway, that's the first story of the day. So good luck, Peter Dinklage. I hope you get it. But usually when they announce someone's in talks, it usually turns out, except for Joaquin Phoenix. That's the only like infamous situation where it didn't work out. All right, so the next story of the day is that, George Takei has really done so much for Asian talent in Hollywood. He's almost approaching like sainthood in Hollywood status. It's just so impressive. Michelle Yeoh is going to be the captain on Star Trek Discovery that's coming up. Aziz Ansari is hosting Saturday Night Live. The first person of South Asian descent to ever do so on the weekend of not this Saturday, but the Saturday after. So that's history in the making right there. That's amazing. Good for him. And I think it's going to be a great episode because he's so funny. And now get this. Daniel Wu, a Hong Kong actor who's been stateside for a couple of movies and TV shows now, is going to be the male lead in the new Tomb Raider movie. That is amazing. That is such a big deal. All right, so it's so cool. Let's find a good entry point to this story. All right, so Daniel Wu. Daniel Wu actually was born in California, went to college in Oregon, so he grew up here in the United States, but his parents were from China. So after college, he decided to go to China, and he started to do some modeling there, and he was discovered by the movie industry, and now he's actually like a pretty big star when it comes to Chinese language movies. Probably actually bigger than a pretty big star. He's like a legit star over there. And he has a very close relationship with Jackie Chan, for instance, and, he knows wushu, so, he's a big talent over there. But, he's been trying to break into the American audience, the Hollywood market, just as all Chinese talent is trying to do now, because this is the time to do it. Now, he's brought his Into the Badlands show. Well, it's not so much his show, but he's the star of it on AMC, which has been given a second season. And that aired in 2015. Now, the second season, I think, might come out this year. But also, if you saw Warcraft, he was the motion capture and the voice of Gul'dan, the evil sorcerer. It really wasn't much. He really disappeared into the role. And, I think that was the case for anyone playing an orc in that movie. I thought it was okay. It did really well in China. All right, so anyway, I mean, not to say it didn't have major problems, but I thought it was certainly, it's better than Assassin's Creed, which also I thought was okay. Somewhat okay. But anyway, so Daniel Wu, working really hard, and he has been rewarded for his efforts as the male lead in Tomb Raider opposite Alicia Vikander. That is such a big deal. And Walton Goggins is going to be the villain, Boyd Crowder from Justified, and, Samuel L. Jackson's surprise partner in The Hateful Eight. So really, really cool. I hope you've seen The Hateful Eight. I'm sorry. All right, so anyway, I think that's really exciting. The story is going to be that Daniel Wu is the captain of like a ship, and he's helping Alicia Vikander's Lara Croft search for her father. So that's a really big deal. He's not like a supporting character. He's not the third wheel. It's him and Lara Croft, and that's amazing. So very exciting. All right, so that's the second story of the day. At least that's how it's been sold to us so far and in the announcement. I hope they don't wimp out and change it when we actually see the picture further come together. All right, so the third story of the day is something that captured a lot of people's attention. Certainly, at least their attention, if not their curiosity. No, it's curiosity first and then attention. Today's a surprisingly big Quentin Tarantino day. All right, so anyway, Will Smith, it looks like, is going to star in Disney's live-action Dumbo. He's circling that project. And, of course, the obvious joke was he has big ears, too. And I'm sure that's going to be something they will reference in the movie, because he would be playing a father who works at the circus, heavily involved in the circus, and his kids of course, have a close relationship with Dumbo, and therefore I'm sure he grows to have one as well. So I'm sure someone in the movie will say, like, hey, you've got big ears, and so does that baby elephant. Maybe it'll cause him to want to save the elephant, because he's like, we big-eared guys got to stick out for each other. So anyway, this is really exciting, all right? So it would be the first live-action fairy tale or live-action animated adaptation that Disney would do with a non-white lead. That's huge. And so, of course, not only would you have Will Smith, but its two children would also be played by child actors of color. And Will Smith's kids are all too big for the movie, so he would not be shooting himself in the foot again. Although in The Pursuit of Happiness, Jaden did a great job. That was the first time they teamed up. It should have been the last. But anyway, the other reason this is such a big deal is that he would be working with Tim Burton, who is directing the movie. Now, of course, Tim Burton had Samuel L. Jackson and Miss Peregrine, but he wasn't the lead. So this is a huge deal for Tim Burton to have that we were just talking about this with Fences. I was like, why doesn't Denzel Washington go make a movie with a big name director? He's making movies with like medium name directors, and Ridley Scott, but Ridley Scott's really hit or miss. He certainly makes a lot of B pictures, and also Denzel Washington's directing himself. I was like, why doesn't he go work with Christopher Nolan or Martin Scorsese, or Alejandro Inarritu? I said, but I think Tim Burton certainly counts, and so I'm surprised. I think it's interesting that Will Smith will be the one to do it. I have to say, for all of Will Smith's faults, his eye on the ball when it comes to mainstream success is very impressive. And he's also, I think, a real trailblazer. He's very aggressive, which I really appreciate. He's like, why not? And that's a great attitude to have. It's like the you got to be first message of Hidden Figures, which is such a great message. And if you want to be first, it means you got to ask or, sometimes take. But you can't, take is produce your own movie in Hollywood. But here, he's going to be part of Disney's movie. And so I think Disney's, although I have to say, I forget the individual's name, but there's a producer who happens to be an African-American high up at the ranks at Disney, and he might be behind a lot of these choices. Queen of Katwe was his. Ava DuVernay's Wrinkle in Time is going to have a mixed race family at the heart of it. I think that he and also they were considering doing a Kevin Hart Santa Claus movie. They're doing also now a female Santa Claus movie. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But Disney's working very hard for diversity, so it shows that you have to have diversity in the executive branch as well when it comes to movie making if you want to see it on screen. So anyway, I think this is great. I hope it happens, and Will Smith. I have a love-hate relationship with him, as I think many people do today when it comes to moviegoers. But when he's good, he's really good. And so I think this would be nice. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that. Now we have a viewer question from Sufyan. And Sufyan says, viewer question. And Sufyan, by the way, frequent BTT viewer and commentator. And Sufyan says, why are there so many rumors surrounding DC movies? Just a few days ago, I read an article about Justice League apparently being a quote-unquote mess. There was an open letter about Wonder Woman as well. I don't take these rumors very seriously, but I don't like that the DCEU movies are being represented so badly in the media. And then another frequent BTT viewer and commentator, Uatu, said, too many cooks in the kitchen and no head chef. And I think that is a big part of it. I've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks because I get similar kind of questions and similar stories come up. And there's no one, bringing down the hammer, being like, don't say anything unless I approve it. What do you think you're doing? There's no ramifications. Everyone's just running around crazy, with nobody getting everybody in line. There's no leader. And that's, no head chef, as Uatu is fun to say, as Uatu said. Now, also, the other problem, there are a couple of issues. And I think a good example is Dwayne Johnson. I know Dwayne Johnson is very good at social media, but he's done 2 things now that I think are not good. He came out and he said that thing about promoting liquor with Henry Cavill, on his Instagram. And now he's also talked about a meeting that he just had at DC about Black Adam. I don't know when Black Adam is coming into the picture, maybe in Justice League 2. He's not on the schedule right now, but they're pushing him so hard and being like, oh, Black Adam, it's going to be amazing. I just had a meeting, and it's like, we should be keeping a focus on the things that are happening. And, I don't know when Black Adam is happening. He doesn't seem to fit into any of the things that are coming up. Let's just calm down, okay? So I think posts like that aren't helpful. I mean, I appreciate that Jeff Johns tweeted out and said, oh, I had a great meeting with, Dwayne Johnson. It was so much fun. Who wouldn't love to meet and talk to Dwayne Johnson about movies? He seems like a really awesome dude. I actually interviewed him, but he couldn't be in the room because of travel problems, so we had to do it via Skype. So I have not actually met Dwayne Johnson personally, but he seems like a really nice guy and a very professional guy. But I think Dwayne Johnson's really all about Dwayne Johnson. He's in the Dwayne Johnson business. And I think that DC needs to look out for their own. So anyway, that's one problem. There's too many people with nobody not only keeping them in line, but there are no ramifications if they step out of line. No repercussions. That's the correct word. All right. So anyway, the other problem is that negative stories about DCEU play like crazy. They are just, catnip to so many, hardcore Marvel fans and also DC fans who are worried about the upcoming movies. So it's just sometimes just too tempting to sites to run a story, right? It's just like, particularly during a slow news month like January, people are just like, let's run with it. Let's go. And I think that's really bad. The final problem, it's not so much a problem, it's just what's going on. And that's that Ben Affleck is doing the press rounds right now for Live by Night. He's going on Jimmy Kimmel. He's doing the junket. So he's doing all these interviews. And because Live by Night's not going to get a lot of clicks, everybody's throwing in Batman DC questions at him. That's just what's happening. So people can, their stories get more play. So he's just sitting down for an interview about Live by Night, but I'm sure every single interview tends, just twists towards Batman. Everyone's like, that's nice, tell me about Batman, so I can run that headline. So that's kind of what's also happening. And so, he said everyone just kind of tries to extrapolate what he's saying. And also I think, Ben Affleck is saying some cryptic things. So that's what some of the stuff is coming from as well. So I think that that's the issue. But, if they would just get things in order, and if they would really have just one person in charge, I think that would solve so many problems for people over at DC, the DCEU. Just one person, like Kathleen Kennedy or Kevin Feige, just get one person to be in charge over there, and I think that would go a long way. But I don't think anybody really for sure knows what's going on, and that's also I think there's probably a lot of rumors with the people who work at the DCEU, and that's never good either. All right, so that's my thoughts on Sufjan's question, and thank you again, Ruru, too, for your 2 cents there. I totally agree with what you said. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories. Sufjan's viewer question, what do you think's fueling all this negative press? And I'm sure some of you will say, because it's true. But again, as I said, people just love to hate the DCEU. It's just, it deals in strong emotions, and that's click-worthy. All right, so write your thoughts down below, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and of course, any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.